people. People are the basis for all our important relationships in life. Even in today's fast-paced blur of dates and places, the human element remains constant, the thread which holds together the fabric. These people are husbands, wives, parents, children, workers, and players. Their lives revolve around others, just as all of ours do. As people, they feel comfort and security knowing they have a role to play within the larger community. Other people are there to depend on them, and in turn, to be depended upon. Some things never change. At Volkswagen Canada, we've never lost sight of this simple fact. We've always made sure that it is people who are at the center of our life. The people who work in our plants and warehouses, who sell the vehicles in our showrooms, and of course, the people who buy those vehicles, our customers. Since 1952, Volkswagen has found room to grow here in Canada. We've taken the time to become dependable partners and friends with other Canadians, to fit into the community as more than just a supplier of automobiles and parts. It's part of an ongoing tradition at Volkswagen, and it's certainly been time well invested. Over the years, we've earned the respect of Canadians not just for the quality of the automobiles we sell, but for our role as a solid corporate citizen as well. In fact, the story of Volkswagen's growth in Canada is a mirror image of the growth and maturing of Canada's economy and society in general. The parallels crop up again and again. It's been a fascinating journey so far, and one of which we are justly proud. Our beginnings in this country are humble ones. In the Canadian automotive industry, we have quite literally come up from the shop floor. In 1952, this was the extent of Volkswagen's presence here. A small service bay in the back of our first dealership on Toronto's Yonge Street. In this somewhat dated workplace, new recruits got their first look at this strange little car from Germany.
Well, basically, it's an air-cooled...
It must have all seemed quite bizarre to these early service technicians. The product they were getting ready to invest their careers in, with its rear-mounted air-cooled engine and distinctive rounded shape, was, to say the least, an oddity. One couldn't blame them if a few doubts and questions were weighing on their minds. Who is going to buy these cars? Am I doing the right thing? Maybe I should stick to North American cars. Everybody buys those.
What we have here is a horizontally opposed engine.
Fortunately, they stuck with their jobs here. They also found out eventually that Volkswagen was prepared to reward those who invested their confidence in us. Even at this early stage, the foundation of Volkswagen's people strategy, a dedicated workforce, was being laid.
Very simple, very straightforward little system.
Back in Europe, the evolution of the Volkswagen success story had been quite different. After World War II, the West Germans were preoccupied with rebuilding their industries. Volkswagen was very much a part of that process, and results were immediate. By 1950, VW's little bug was firmly established in Europe. Volkswagen had become West Germany's largest manufacturer by far, accounting for 45% of the country's total industrial output. It was at this point that Professor Heinz Nordhoff, the architect of Volkswagen's post-war success, began to look seriously at expanding the vehicle's export markets. for the Beetle to fully realize its potential as a worldwide top seller, Nordhoff knew he would have to crack the toughest market of all, North America.
Ist denn das die Möglichkeit? Dem werde ich jetzt zeigen. Wollen doch mal sehen.
Unlike Europe, which was involved in a long process of reconstruction, post-war North America was a wide-open market in the full bloom of prosperity. Its burgeoning economy was able to mass-produce everything from toasters to dishwashers to jet aircraft. To many, the continent must have appeared to be a promised land of material comfort. The road just seemed to go on forever. North Americans also liked their cars. Not the small, efficient Beetles which Volkswagen was producing, but big, powerful highway machines incorporating completely different technology. Added to that was an undeniable air of suspicion surrounding economy cars in general and imports in particular. Up to that point, too many people had bought inexpensive little cars only to find there were no back seats, no spare tires, and no spare parts available anywhere. Many were never designed to run in a Canadian winter and simply packed it in when the first snow fell. A large number of those people who had decided to buy small naturally felt cheated. The vehicles quickly began to acquire a real image problem.
I think the Beetle re-established in people's mind that yes, European cars can do very well in this climate and are very, tough little cars. You forgo a few luxuries, but you also pay a little bit less for it. And so I think they did open and re-establish credibility for imports. I think we can claim that, yeah.
So, to the early planners like Heinz Nordhoff, the challenge must have seemed daunting. They knew they had to establish a foothold in North America. But how was it possible? Were North Americans going to buy economy in a time of plenty? It was obviously going to be a very big gamble for the company. Volkswagen's solution was to come to Canada. In 1952, the firm established its first direct subsidiary company, Volkswagen Canada Limited. Under the supervision of VW's first managing director for this country, Mr. Werner Jensen, a farmhouse on Yonge Street in Toronto was converted into the company's headquarters and only showroom. The site was not imposing, and neither was the company's success in those early days. That same year, the Volkswagen Beetle was introduced to the Canadian market at Toronto's annual exhibition. This debut resulted in a grand total of just 8 vehicles being sold in 1952. Not easily discouraged, Jensen stuck to his belief that the best way to sell the Beetle was to take it directly to the people for whom it was designed. Jensen and one of VW Canada's first employees, Kurt Herring, loaded up a couple of vehicles and personally set off on a cross-Canada tour. The idea was to drive into every town and city they could find, show the car off, talk to the people about it, and begin the process of signing up the distributors the company would need.
The central and western coverage took place much faster, and the Maritimes were left last, but it turned out that they were the toughest nut to crack as far as the deal organization is concerned. We knew that we were at the beginning of something big, and we knew that we were in a pioneering stage, and we had to spread the gospel, and we had to do a lot of legwork, and we didn't count the hours. We just enjoyed it, being out there and selling something and demonstrating something that we firmly believed in.
Underlying their mission was one key element: simple honesty about the product they were selling. There were no extravagant promises or wild claims as to the nature of the vehicle or what it could do. What people saw is what they got. People, in turn, appreciated this honesty and came to associate it with Volkswagen as much as the Beetle itself. The cross-country venture, though time-consuming and tiring, was a success. It certainly justified Werner Janssen's belief in this direct approach. During demonstration stopovers in the larger Canadian cities, Janssen began signing up his first Canadian dealers. Soon, dozens of other businessmen were realizing the potential of Volkswagen's odd little economy car. Dealerships began springing up in a host of other Ontario, Kentville, Nova Scotia, Victoria, British Columbia. The groundwork stages of Volkswagen Canada's sales and service network were now in place. The family was starting to grow.
I think immediately upon meeting Werner Janssen, you were impressed with him. You could tell he was a man of tremendous force. And as you got to know him and worked with him, we all became even more impressed with his enthusiasm, with his honesty. After I became a dealer, we had many problems, always in the early days. But Werner was always available. He always gave you an answer, perhaps not the one you wanted, but he was there, and everybody respected him.
For Janssen and his early team at Volkswagen Canada, results were immediate and definitely encouraging. From 8 vehicles in 1952, sales climbed to over 1,700 Beetles the following year. The company never looked back. The figures from then on are truly astonishing. In 1957, the 50,000th Volkswagen destined for Canada was being built in Wolfsburg. And by 1962, 10 years after we first introduced our cars to Canada, 200,000 had been sold. With this growth in sales came a corresponding growth in investment in the Canadian economy. During 1957, the company embarked on the first of its large-scale projects here. It was an engine remanufacturing facility based in Toronto, and it was such a success that VWC had to begin upgrading its capacity almost immediately. Investment continued to grow to the point where by 1962, Volkswagen had spent a great deal of money in Canada, creating hundreds of jobs in the process. It went a long way towards assuring Canadians as to the company's long-term objective of being a dependable business partner. During this time, Volkswagen was also realizing the importance of improving the quality of its product and diversifying the model range. While not radically altering the appearance of the Beetle, more powerful models were being developed in response to our customers' wishes. And for those who wanted something different, the company was able to offer its first alternative to the Beetle in 1957. It was called the Karmann Ghia, and its sporty looks paved the way for the introduction of the Porsche line into Volkswagen Canada's repertoire in 1959. So by the early 60s, Volkswagen's roots had taken firm hold here in Canada. Not only was the company a financial success story, it had solidified its reputation as a model corporate citizen as well.
Have you ever wondered how the man who drives a snowplow drives to the snowplow? This one drives a Volkswagen.
That reputation was further enhanced by an imaginative series of ad campaigns, which assured a place for Volkswagen in the hearts and minds of Canadians. The TV commercials seem to sum up perfectly the Volkswagen spirit of the time. Simple, unpretentious, yet confident and geared to success.
He was done in by the 1960s.
We ought to have a new transmission, Mr. Potts, as soon as the mail strike's over. In Italy. Carburetor's got grit and stroke. What can I tell you, Mr. Potts?
If someone else is spending more time with your sports car than you are, get a sports car as reliable as a Volkswagen. A Volkswagen Carmen Ghia.
I never thought I'd live to see the day.
A Volkswagen, unlike any other Volkswagen. Big, with 4 big doors, and all the comfort of a big car. I'm from Volkswagen, and I've got a music problem.
I'm Ronnie. I'm Johnny. You got a problem. We got a song.
He's here! Ladies and gentlemen, the 18 millionth person in the world to buy a Volkswagen just walked through our doors. This is an historic moment. I thought perhaps a theme song.
We did car gigs.
If you've been looking high and low for a big car as good as a Volkswagen, maybe you should look into our big car, the Volkswagen 411. Improvement number 1, the compression ratio has been optimized through dish pistons. Dish pistons optimize compression ratio. Oh, yes, I know. Oh. Got anything else? Improvement number 2, increased air inlet groupings. Number 18, an advanced manifold preheating system. Finally, improvement number 29, floating bearings for most mounting points. Gentlemen, the most improved Volkswagen ever.
Kid, 5,000 canaries whistling the bluebird of happiness at the Hollywood Bowl couldn't help you.
The ads used humor and wit to get the company's message across without being stuffy or self-important. It was just the right note to sound during that decade of turbulent change in Canada. And it was a big reason why the Volkswagen Bug has become one of the indelible images of that era in our minds.
It costs no more than the average automobile and goes in 2 different directions at once.
Looking back on it now, it is in many ways impossible to separate some of these images from everything else that was happening in the 50s and 60s. These were decades of fantastic growth in Canada. Not only was our economy changing, so was our society, so completely that nothing before or after compares. Of course, these were good decades for Volkswagen Canada as well. We grew as the country did and shared in the prosperity. All the while, our investment in communities across this land and our commitment to the people who lived in them continued to grow side by side. In keeping with the philosophy first brought here by Werner Jensen, it was vital not only to secure a market for the company in Canada, it was vital to secure the trust of Canadians as well. This was the true foundation of Volkswagen Canada's success in the early years. In 1973, the world woke up to a new political reality called OPEC. This cartel of oil-producing nations, of which almost no one had heard before, began to flex its muscles by raising the prices of its crude oil. The rest of the world could only watch in shock. Combined with violent exchange rate fluctuations in 1971 and 1972, the effects of OPEC's price hikes rippled through the economies of nations everywhere, especially those in the West who were so dependent on imported oil. All of a sudden, there seemed to be a new economic order emerging in the world. The politics and economics of nations and industries were going to have to change. Nothing would remain untouched. Particularly hard hit by escalating oil costs were, of course, the automobile manufacturers, those linchpins of Western prosperity. Almost overnight, car makers were playing a new game with entirely new rules. Expensive gasoline meant many manufacturers, especially those in Canada, had to rethink their most basic precepts of automobile production. Flash and power had now become expendable. Economy and efficiency became the watchwords in this new era of car making. It became quickly apparent that manufacturers who could not incorporate these concepts into their thinking were doomed. They would be left producing cars which no one would buy. With this in mind, Volkswagen and the other European automobile manufacturers did have one tremendous advantage. Their vehicles were already fuel efficient and relatively inexpensive to run. Volkswagen's especially. 18 million Beetles had so far been made, dedicated to this principle. At least there was plenty of proof on the world's highways.
In our case, one of the major changes came later in the oil crisis. Because by that time we had new cars that were very fuel efficient, that had coefficients, and that, as a matter of fact, with diesel engine, and thus we were helped very much by the oil crisis, of all the things.
So, in this climate of increasing oil costs, Volkswagen's commitment to improved technology and fuel efficiency began to pay off handsomely. People the world over looked to companies like Volkswagen to make some sense of the new economic realities of driving. Such was the company's reputation for innovation. Of course, people, in their quest for the best deal possible, also looked to the cars of Volkswagen's newest competitors, the manufacturers of Japan. The makers of small economy cars were facing stiff new competition from the East, and Volkswagen knew it couldn't rest on its laurels. At the root of its plans, the company realized it was time for a successor to the venerable old Beetle. An era was over for Volkswagen. It was time to go forward again. Over the next couple of years, the company phased out production of the Beetle altogether in West Germany. It was replaced by the Golf and the sporty Scirocco, and Canadians were surprised to see another innovation from Volkswagen, the traditional fuel economy married to a clean, modern design. These vehicles were able to blur the lines between efficiency and style like no others had before, and the result was a triumph for the company. The Golf proved to be a worthy successor to the Beetle. Canadians could now depend on Volkswagen for vehicles with the economy, price, and looks they wanted. The automobiles were changing, but the same Volkswagen commitment to quality was there. Sportier GTI versions of the Golf and the Scirocco were being introduced. Diesel engine cars were coming onto the market as another option in a more fuel. The Audi was being introduced to Canadians, a distinguished upmarket, efficient and economical. And not, of course, to forget our ongoing distribution of the Porsche line here in Canada. This the epitome of quality and good taste in a sports car. Volkswagen showrooms, now filled with a wide variety of vehicles to suit every taste and budget, had changed radically from 20 years before. There was no doubt the company was now one of the most mature and progressive automobile manufacturers in the world. Not only did sales of our cars continue to grow dramatically during, so did recognition of Volkswagen Canada as a key player in the Canadian automobile market. 1977 saw Volkswagen in Canada celebrating its 25th anniversary, and there were genuine reasons to celebrate. Our dealers had at that point sold over Porsches and Audis in this country. They had also built a solid reputation for quality as well. The company continued its tradition of bright new ideas with the initiation of service programs like iCare, also in 1977. Volkswagen Canada had grown up to the point where it had become a virtual hotbed of innovative ideas. After seeing how well iCare worked here in Canada, for instance, it was then introduced to Volkswagen subsidiaries around the world. Likewise, the Audi card, another comprehensive customer protection program. Never one of its vehicles with such an all-encompassing commitment to service. Such was the quality of the brain trust here that Volkswagen headquarters in West Germany encouraged the ranging from warehousing techniques to apprenticeship programs. To augment the good ideas coming out of the VWC, the company also began to realize the potential of the auto parts business. After much planning, a large-scale component plant was opened in Barrie, Ontario, in 1983. The intention was to produce cast aluminum wheels, catalytic converters, and die-cast parts for shipments worldwide. Committed to by Volkswagen Canada was $100 million in a state-of-the-art facility. In subsequent years, significant monies were also to be put in parts warehousing and service training in the country's major centers. By the late 1980s, Volkswagen had developed a reliable corporate presence here in Canada. The number of dealerships had grown to almost 200, a figure maintained to this day. And overall, the company and its dealers now employ 4,500 people in this country, a large workforce by anyone's definition. These were, of course, additional investments in the Canadian economy on the part of Volkswagen Canada. But they were also more. They were a recognition on the part of the company that Canada was a major force in the world automotive industry. The important thing is that Volkswagen is always thinking in terms of the big picture. The company's investments in Canada parallel those made almost everywhere else in the world. Volkswagen's belief is that increased world trade inevitably leads to increased world prosperity, a situation in which everyone contributes and everyone in turn benefits. To this end, the company realizing its global picture. There are 23 factories producing our products in 16 different countries. In North America, Africa, and Asia. And of course, there's hardly a country in the world where our vehicles are not sold and serviced. In all, over 250,000 people are proud to say they work for Volkswagen. It's no surprise that the company is one of the world's biggest automobile manufacturers in this decade. What's important to us right now is that we stay that way into the new century. The future. No one can ever know exactly what the future holds. Still, it's always around the corner and has to be met, whatever the challenges. As Volkswagen Canada enters a new era, the mood is one of optimism. We know the methods and strategies that have enabled us to become firmly established here in Canada will see us through continued success. We've already begun the process of adapting new technology to increase the productivity of our facilities. A well-trained and committed force of employees is the main reason why we're inserting ourselves with such renewed vigor here in Canada. At every level, from employee to manager, there seems to be instilled a strong feeling of family amongst those who work for this company. Our showrooms, and you can feel it when you drive one of our cars. Volkswagen Canada is a family of like-minded individuals, professionals with a strong sense of purpose. That purpose extends to community involvement in charities, co-op programs for schools, and access programs for the disabled. Constantly increase sales and improve service. A desire to bring new customers into the family. And with the Volkswagens, Porsches, or Audis they've bought. Customers, after all, are the people who make it all worthwhile for us. The people we like to see smile when they leave our dealerships.
In terms of marketing, we have to satisfy the customer. And the trick is the one that wins in this marketplace is going to be the one that can outthink the opposition. Because we've all got resources, we've all got money, but this ability to think. And that, of course, comes from people. So we have to nurture this asset of people and put them to work. Let them free, set them free. Let them guide this company through these tough times ahead.
People. They've always been the most important investment for Volkswagen, wherever it has chosen to build or sell vehicles. People to represent us in their respective countries, to help us build our philosophy of prosperity through cooperation and innovation. Also, of course, people to represent their respective countries to us. We've always but anyone's national borders. Different ideas can easily be always there to listen. We like to think we're quite good at that. It certainly helped us a lot over the years. So when you have an attitude like that, the only thing that lies ahead is an open road. Volkswagen Canada. The past is our history. The future is our challenge.
Every year in North America, thousands upon thousands of motorists get the bad news. Chances are they've been feeling it coming for months. In the way their vehicle performs on the road. In the loss of power while passing on the highway. In the way it runs on after the turn off the ignition. They've felt it coming, but that doesn't make it any better when they hear the fateful words, "Your car needs a new one." At that moment, motorists realize they have a major problem. And you, the automobile manufacturer, realize you have the challenge of helping them solve that problem. It's all part of your ongoing commitment to better service. That's when you need Volkswagen Canada's remanufacturing technology to go to work for you. These days, auto bodies are outliving motors. For that reason, more and more vehicles out here are powered by remanufactured engines. It's often an economical and more practical answer to today's high cost of automobile repairs. It's also due in no small part to the efforts of Volkswagen Canada and its engine remanufacturing facility. Located in the heart of southern Ontario's automobile belt, we've been remanufacturing engines to factory specifications since 1957. Since that time, the operation has rebuilt more than 250,000 power plants. Not only for our own Audi, Volkswagen, and Porsche lines, but for some of the major North American auto manufacturers as well. In fact, Volkswagen Canada's engine remanufacturing has become such a success story, the plant now covers 70,000 square feet or 6,500 square meters of productive space in eastern Toronto. The facility also has access to a huge parts warehouse located in Ajax, Ontario. It's a state-of-the-art warehouse, vital for storing new parts and finished products on a... To properly control parts flow, we are using the manufacturing resource planning system, the MRP2. There are two simple reasons for this record of ongoing achievement. First, the facility is truly a marvel. The people who work here have been given the best equipment possible to do their jobs quickly, safely, and comfortably. Secondly, it's the people themselves. At the root of our approach to engine remanufacturing is the knowledge that people make this whole process work. People who have made a career at Volkswagen Canada, who take pride in their jobs and share with us an ongoing commitment to quality. Quality is uppermost on our minds all the way through the remanufacturing process. That process begins with disassembly of the old engine cores. These worn-out blocks are quickly taken apart and then undergo the first of 50 different inspections and tests. This is also the first stage at which we rely on the knowledge and experience of our employees. A crucial decision must be made here. Is this engine block fit to carry on through the remanufacturing process? Does it measure up to our standards even at this point? If not, the block is rejected and scrapped. It's the first major decision to be made in our quality control procedure, and it's one we trust to the trained eyes of our employees. The disassembled components then go through this station, which ensures they are thoroughly washed. It's an automated process designed so that steel and aluminum components can be washed separately. After washing, the components are then subjected to even further stages of cleaning: blasting, wire brushing, and baking. These remove any final traces of grease, dirt, or rust, and fully prepare the block for the next station, painting. This procedure takes place in a specially built water wash spray booth. The water used not only here, but in the giant washing machines as well, is treated before it is allowed to leave the facility. Such is our concern for the environment, both inside and outside our plant, that Volkswagen Canada voluntarily installed a purification system for its wastewater. It's the way we like to think of ourselves: people-friendly and environment-friendly. The next stage of the process is machining. Here, at various different stages, blocks are bored out to the next standardized oversize. Cylinder heads are reworked, camshaft bores rehoned, and crankshafts are ground. And it's here that our commitment to quality really pays off for our customers. We use pneumatic electronic sizing controls to ensure that all machining is done to factory tolerances. After machining, the cylinder heads and blocks are then milled to guarantee their surfaces are properly matched. This goes a long way toward assuring a long life for the remanufactured engine. As a final stage of machining, the crankshafts are then polished to the factory-specified. This equipment, in a multi-belt configuration, polishes all bearing journals in one single operation, thus maintaining efficiency and consistency of quality. But despite all of the latest equipment and the highest of standards, the process always comes back to people. The staff who work with this equipment know that Volkswagen Canada values the pride they take in their jobs as much as the skill in their hands.
Well, skills goes without saying. They want to have that goes with a good quality product. If you haven't got the skilled labor, it doesn't come out as a good product in the end.
Everybody which is working here knows the part should be so good that he would buy it, that he will buy his part, not somebody else's part. Produce an engine for the customer which is 100% in quality. Everything works, everything is on it, so that the mechanic can put it in without any problems. And the customer can run it for as long as he keeps his car.
The exhaustive process of washing does not, however, guarantee that the remanufactured cylinder blocks are on their way. At this stage, the blocks are again washed, pressure tested, and examined with an electronic crack detector. Units that have at this point developed even one single hairline crack are thrown out. More than ever, quality is paramount. The engine blocks are now ready for the final stage of work, assembly. The assembly process includes cylinder head installation and, of course, numerous further tests. We at Volkswagen Canada view this stage as the combination of a lot of hard work and quality control. After assembling, every remanufactured engine undergoes final testing to make sure everything is perfect. Oil pressure and compression must match factory specification. Only after we're sure that at this stage we produce the best engine possible is the new block ready to be packed and shipped.
Essentially, the quality is for the customer, because he's the end user, and he's the paying customer, and therefore it is extremely important that he just gets the best quality for his money, and also not only for his money, but also it holds up our name, Volkswagen, or even a third-party business, because it holds our name, which goes onto the block. And that's why it's most important to maintain top quality.
We at Volkswagen Canada take pride in every aspect of our engine manufacturing. But in truth, this is not the part. Here, the shipment of newly remanufactured engines begins the journey to our customers and to the vehicles which need them. Because we've been offering specialized service for so long, that journey could end up anywhere in North America. That's how big our distribution network really is. Wherever we have customers, in the United States or Canada, we deliver remanufactured engines to them, usually within 48 hours. Sometimes, even within 24 hours, if there is a pressing need. Service, you see, is as important to us as it is to you. That's where the commitment to quality shared by all our people comes in. And that's what allows us to say, with confidence, that a remanufactured engine from Volkswagen Canada is every bit as good as the original. We'll stand behind it with a 12-month guarantee. It's a matter of commitment. And it's a matter of pride.
customer comes first. When you see it's displayed in many places here today, it's not just a hollow promise. It's a mission which will be asked everyone in our organization to practice. This new building and its facilities are just one example of how we, as a corporation, can ensure the most efficient parts supply and service training to our dealers and consequently to our end customers.
April 27th, 1989.
Volkswagen Canada opens its new parts center and service training facility in Ajax, Ontario. A host of dignitaries, some from company headquarters in West Germany, gather for the event. A commemorative plaque is unveiled. Tributes are paid, and a new era begins for the automotive parts and service industry in Canada. Now that finally died down, it's business as usual for the 58 people who work here. Parts are received and shipped, orders were filled, and a whole new generation of technicians is learning the Volkswagen philosophy. Just a short time ago, however, this facility was nothing more than a bright idea in the minds of the planners who designed it. In 1984, the site was undisturbed, a large expanse of greenery, nestled